At my relative's house in the afternoon, the second is not always win. I feel that the rhythm is a bit slow. I will try to make the plot more compact and adjust some explanations later, so if you find something strange again, maybe I will remind you later. Above, I wish you all a happy 2020, the year of the rat. Ding ding dang. See through. Good. Cut one word. Langren frowned without saying a word, looked at the screen with a ding, and a big die. The elite handle in his hand suddenly disappeared. Oh, let me just say it. After seeing through, you have a big hard mind. You should clear your torso one word after another. Let me tell you that you should use Fixu early, so that the bloodline will be consumed in the early stage, and the torso will be easier to hit in the later stage. The roommates onlookers behind him ridiculed all of a sudden, and Balabala had an afterthought. Langren smacked his tongue, checked the time, turned off the computer, and said casually to go to dinner. Look, this is the price of buying a wolf. I can only go to the cafeteria. Wait, bring me a copy. And I want to cry, Sekiro. Langren, who had been playing for the full day, didn't know the death word he had read dozens of times without knowing it, but his heart was depressed. These dog thieves were still mocking and sarcasm. Don't you buy Devil May Cry and don't eat soil? You still want me to bring food? Looked gloomy and walked out of the dormitory building step by step. The uncle who is passing by the doorman, the uncle is wearing reading glasses, looking at the newspaper in his hand. Uncle reads the newspaper every day, and the students persuade him to buy a cheaper large-screen mobile phone, which can save several years of newspaper money. The uncle always smiled and said that high-tech is not available, and his eyes cannot see clearly, so he can feel the paper in his hand. Master, what's the news today? I want to come and have nothing to do except eat. Langren sat on the other side of the uncle's bench to talk. The uncle is quite humorous. There are often students who talk to him about everything from astronomy to geography. Even if he doesn't understand things, he is willing to listen to these young guys. Today? It's nothing big. You young people are interested, maybe there is a star passing by us. Stars? Shooting stars. I don't know, I only mentioned one sentence in the newspaper. Oh, thank you, uncle, if it is night, I can make a wish to heaven. Langren bid farewell to the uncle, took out his mobile phone and started searching for meteor keywords to see when. But as he searched while walking, he found that there was no news of a meteor today. Master, do you look dazzled? Langren scratched his head and didn't care. He was out to relax and didn't get entangled. The food in the canteen is always not good, and the ant is still the emperor, and the meal is tasteless. But Langren still brought 3 copies to his roommate. How can you just let yourself suffer? Langren also deliberately picked dishes that were not very tasty for them. After taking a shower in advance and changing his mood, Langren began to learn how to write dead words again. The fiery red sunset completely submerged into the horizon. When night came, Langren's bedroom was still there, ding ding dang. See through. Wolf under his control, the Kejmaru in his hand stubbornly blocked the juggernaut Yuxin's knives and spears, and stepped on the spear that slammed into it, but he was pulled back. At this time, Yuxin's torso is already orange and red, just about the last point. Stunt skill, undead slash. The last few paper people are reserved for this time. Finally, kneeling and sitting in the floating reeds, he shouted. Do it! Sekiro. Mew dumbfounded and watched the wolf raising blood-red immortal slash, exhausted all his strength, and made a mistake for Wei Ming. Langren not only didn't have the joy and excitement after clearance, but he was panicked in his chest, feeling unable to breathe. He quickly threw down the elite handle and let it play instead. Langren rushed to the balcony by himself. After finally taking a breath, Langren realized that he was sorry. Compared to the Lord desperately slaughtering the wolves in the square, Langren actually liked this final boss a little bit more. Took out the phone, 11:28. It's so late, how many times have I read the dead words? Lang Gren took a deep breath and turned into a long sigh, ready to go to sleep, to end the day. Suddenly, a little light appeared in the distance of the sky. Is it a meteor? Uncle didn't look at Desling. Lang Gren stopped turning around and slumped on the balcony fence again, staring at the bright light intently. But, it doesn't seem to be a meteor. The bright light grew bigger and bigger, and finally covered the entire sky. Lang Gren saw dense pits on it, reminding him of pictures of the moon on the internet. That is a crater. This is an extremely huge meteorite. Or just call it an asteroid. But Lang Gren didn't notice that no one could see this asteroid like him. It wasn't until this asteroid gradually disappeared into the night sky that Lang Gren recovered. He was so shocked that he forgot to call his roommate to see him. Hey, Lang Gren turned his head back, his voice hadn't been halfway. A huge whistling sound concealed his voice, and a meteorite with the size of a wash basin directly hit Lang Gren, who was standing on the balcony. At this moment, Lang Gren has forgotten everything, and his mind is blank. The whistling sound dissipated, and the roommate reacted. Just now Lang Gren seemed to make a noise from the balcony. Lang Gren shouted several times, but no one responded. Fuck! It won't fall down, right? This is the 6th floor. The roommate hurriedly jumped out of the bed and ran to the balcony barefoot. Lang Gren! Lang Gren! There was silence on the balcony, and he poked his head out to look downstairs, but the dim street light couldn't illuminate the downstairs, and he couldn't see where Lang Gren was. Quickly stop sleeping, Lang Gren fell downstairs. In a mess for a while, a few people rushed downstairs shirtless and barefoot. But Lang Gren was not found either. Didn't you say that Lang Gren fell? What about people? Are we happy? No. Impossible, I heard him calling us on the balcony. He ran to the balcony before, but no one else was seen on the balcony. Finally, Yu reading www. A roommate of yuyuganshu.com asked, "Who are you looking for? Are you asleep? Our roommate? Lang. Lang what? What? Who?" The roommates scratched their heads and forgot what they were doing. "What are you doing here naked most of the night?" Yu yelled, "Others don't want to sleep." The uncle took a flashlight and shone them, and scolded a few words. "I'm sorry, uncle, we seem to have dropped something. We came down to find it, but we couldn't find it. Go up if you don't find it. I'm looking for it tomorrow." The three roommates went upstairs obediently, wondering what they were doing all the way down. Entered the bedroom, went to bed each, and turned off the lights. There is only one unmanned bed, the computer screen is still on, but it is ignored by everyone, as if it does not exist. Chest. My chest hurts. Lang Gren's consciousness was immersed in the darkness, only remembering that a huge object hit him, and his consciousness was dissipated. Consciousness again, Lang Gren felt the pain in his chest unbearable. He wanted to open his mouth and scream, but he couldn't feel the presence of his mouth. Could it be that I became a vegetable? Lang Gren was startled, and his consciousness struggled frantically. He doesn't want to be taken care of when lying in a hospital bed forever, so he would rather die than drag anyone down. The huge drum sound reverberated in the sea of consciousness, shaking Lang Gren dizzy. A huge scarlet letter of death appeared in consciousness. This. Lang Gren's reaction at this time is like Deng Chao in The Mermaid. I am so vegetative, and I still wonder how to write dead words? Either come back to life or die, give me away. Lang Gren turned his heart. As if responding to his thoughts, the pitch-black consciousness suddenly became white and bright, and Lang Gren could gradually feel his body. But the sharp pain in his chest still exists, and he can't breathe. Trembling eyelids, consciousness returned to the body, strange voices came from his ears, like someone was talking, the language was completely incomprehensible. But as time went by, Lang Gren found that he gradually understood a little bit. What has been lost? Personnel assigned, an undercover establishment. What the hell? At this moment, Lang Gren inexplicably thought of the asteroid that covered the entire sky, and the meteorite that hit him, vegetative, dead, incomprehensible and understandable language. His scalp suddenly numb. He is a new generation of young people in the 21st century. He has not read many novels, but there are not many, especially the prosperous and prosperous. Is not traversing now, I'm sorry for being the protagonist. A series of thoughts flashed. Lang Gren gritted his teeth and opened his eyes slightly. The first thing that came into view was that a blood-stained knife pierced his chest. The blood beads on his guard had just solidified, and his right hand was stained with blood, holding the blade left outside of his chest. The owner of this body seems to be unwilling to die. Did not move his body, his eyes and pupils dilated a little, turning to look farther away. There seemed to be a figure in black with his back facing this side, and the voice of speaking came from there. His eyes slowly swept around. Lang Gren closed his eyes again and began to organize his thoughts. The beginning of world cognition. The cognition is over, it takes 3 seconds. Personal template loading. Skill template loading. Skill template rules conflict, being reworked, rework completed, loading successfully. Shop template, warning. Shop template is missing. Shop template skipped. A series of drums sounded. Lang Gren was surprised to find that a scroll appeared in his mind, like an invisible brush on it, writing a few lines of Chinese characters quickly, unexpectedly faster than his reading speed after years of reading novels. Fast. The scroll was retracted in Lang Gren's sea of consciousness, and then reopened. The words on it had changed. Name, Lang Gren. Status, near-death spirit, 3/10 chi, 2/10 god, 8/15 storage experience, 0/10 conversion skill points, 0 rebirth time, 0/3. Lang Gren's heart moved, and the second scroll appeared, but there were 5 skill trees painted on it, and on the top it was written Wei Mingliu Yuxin Lu. This is the history that Ashina wrote all his life. According to this posture, did I get the wolf system? Anyway, he seems to be dead now, and the killer has not left yet. Lang Gren looked at the skill tree in detail and found that there were already 2 lighted up skills. Life Protecting Breath Yang, acquire the permanent effect. When you successfully kill the opponent, restore your breath. Breath Holding, acquire the constant effect, which can suppress the breath when concealed, making it difficult to be found by the enemy. Too much. Lang Gren scolded angrily, is this human doing? With knives stuck in his chest, give himself these 2 passive skills? It was obvious that he wanted to kill the man in black and recover his injuries. Okay. The man in black suddenly felt something. He retracted his gaze to look at the city buildings, turned his head and looked at the corpse he had nailed to the ground in a puzzled way, and found that there was nothing unusual. You are sensitive? Chuckled as if mocking himself for fear of a dead person, and continued to listen to the communication from his boss. What's wrong? What's so funny? In the communicator on his wrist, the hoarse voice asked suspiciously. It's nothing, my lord. I almost died seeing a dog being beaten by the roadside. It's nothing funny. It's such a world now. It's not so good on the surface. In fact, everyone is the dog that was beaten, and they don't know it. Yes. This is the reason for my allegiance. Okay, that's it. Since the traitor wants to betray, you don't need to keep the whole body, and feed the dog. Hanging up the communication, the man in the black hood smiled and drew out a tube of reagent. Brother, don't blame me, you are all working for the organization, you are actually fascinated by a woman, and want to quit, or don't feed you the dog, you will be reborn in the future, the next life you have to know how to listen to the boss. But why are there 2 shadows on this rooftop? Suddenly, a blood-stained hand stretched out from his left shoulder to cover his mouth. Lang Gren kept the movement of holding the blade with his right hand, staring at the back of the man in black, and gently pulled upwards in his hand, but the severe pain made his arm tremble. If he hadn't used the breath-holding effect to endure him now, he called out long ago. How can an ordinary university experience crying like this? The most painful pain in my memory is the feeling that my father's belt was pulled on my body when I was a child. Seeing that the man in black's hood moved slightly, Lang Gren immediately closed his eyes and pretended to die. After a while, there was a voice of conversation. Lang Gren felt fierce in his heart, and directly held his left hand on the knife, gritting his teeth and pulling out the long knife that was stuck in his heart. Long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. Metal rubbed against the heart muscle, Lang Gren's face was pale. Until he completely drew out the 2-foot-long knife, Lang Gren held it with a little confidence, got up and walked slowly over, not daring to make a sound, until he stood behind the other party and listened to his words. The brute force Lang Gren shot desperately to cover the opposite mouth and break to the left, making the area of the right neck larger. He is afraid that if he is wrongly placed, he will be killed again, then he will really go to the west. The 2-foot-long knife in his hand was raised upside down, the neon light of the city shining on it, and the mottled blood was reflected in the shocked eyes of the man in black, simply and firmly pierced into the black clothes, skin, arteries, and straight heart. Puff scarlet blood spurted up to a foot. Yu reading www.yunshu.com hotly splashed on Lang Gren's cold body. Released the dying person with meaningless breath in his mouth. Lang Gren felt that the injury to his chest and heart had begun to heal slowly, but the speed was a bit slow. You can't directly recover blood like in the game. His personal attributes represent physical strength, but he has recovered a bit, and he also found that his hands have gradually gained strength. It seems that physical strength is the most obvious recovery, and physical strength is related to the health of the body, so injuries will also be affected. In order to recover faster, Lang Gren sat down on the ground and watched the blood under the opponent's body gradually spread out until it stopped changing. He didn't know how long it had passed, the sky was still pitch black, no one came to the rooftop, and he was temporarily safe. The wound of the heart has been compounded, and gradually beating, the blood that is about to clot but still warm is flowing again. Lang Gren looked at the character panel again. The state had become extremely weak, and there was no hint of revival. My life is saved, and the aftermath can be dealt with. Lang Gren stepped forward to reverse the corpse and saw the glass tube in the opponent's hand. Is this the thing that ruins? Lang Gren took the glass tube in his hand and looked at it, and found that there was a brief manual on it. Only the flesh, be careful of splashing. I don't know, but I understand. But it's a wonderful experience. If only to the body, Lang Gren had to take off the other party's clothes. Looking at the pool of carbonized powder in front of him in amazement, Lang Gren wondered what magical world he was in. What now? Lang Gren was stunned. Where should he go now? As if feeling Lang Gren's suspicious life again, a deafening drum echoed in Lang Gren's Tianling Gai, drawing his attention back. In the corner of the sea of consciousness, another piece of paper rose up. What? Lang Gren glanced around, and suddenly remembered most of the memories of this corpse. Only the owner can remember what can be recalled, such as asset accounts and passwords. And the owner does not remember, or the memory that needs guidance to recall, Lang Gren also does not remember, or needs guidance. He now seems to have loaded a Langland virtual system into the Lang Gren main system. It's quite humane, worthy of an old thief from Miyazaki. Lang Gren knew that it didn't matter what the old thief Miyazaki was, but just wanted to sigh with emotion. Lying on a cheap bed, Lang Gren lost the calm and curiosity of killing at the time. He knew he had crossed, left the school where his parents left the sand sculpture roommate, and left the earth. I don't know if it's in the same universe, maybe it's already a parallel universe, two universes that will never intersect. He is already alone. It is as if the old man in the family has passed away. Only in the following days can I feel the loss of this person, and I will cry in the night. Kind of hindsight. Lang Gren's initial excitement has cooled down. In the memory of the body owner, this is a world that has experienced the end times. Yes, it's a planet where zombies are rampant. 39 years ago, the zombie virus broke out and swept the world from a city in less than a year. Whether it was a place of war or a country of order, it was destroyed by the zombie virus in this year. It took thousands of years to build. The civilized order that came up suddenly reduced to the Colosseum, and everyone was fighting for themselves, and the only relatives left. Until, in humans, people with strange abilities appeared, and they carried the banner of fighting the end times. After consuming each other, zombies will produce more powerful individuals, produce various abilities, and even have intelligence that is no less than that of humans. This is the reason for the collapse of human order. Until humans are infected with viruses, they not only did not become zombies without saying, on the contrary also gained extraordinary ability. This ability can be grown after long time training. Some people say that this is evolution, a cruel evolution. Since then, it seems that as the first person gained abilities, more and more people acquired their own abilities by accident. Some were the use of natural elements such as wind, fire, thunder, electricity, and ice, and some were super strong. There is also the invisible but actual power of thought. Human beings are finally no longer the meat kept in captivity by the lord of the zombies, but the beasts that can bite back. But this is not the capital to establish an orderly world again. Humans and zombies can only maintain a delicate balance in the end, and no one can truly shake anyone. It was the sky that finally lowered the weight on this balance. Is an alien, that is, an alien civilization, discovered that the alien civilization on this planet seems to belong to the cosmic order civilization that is expanding the universe. At that time, it was a fierce fighting battlefield. Suddenly, a huge ship crushed the sky, and the controlled zombies and humans stopped the battle unanimously. The alien with the mental fluctuation translation device meets with the top leaders of both sides. The first sentence is, "Am I disturbing you? Do you want to fight again, and we will talk after you finish?" Alien civilization is indeed based on the belief that this civilization does not disturb the local ecological order and order of the planet, and wants them to continue their respective goals and not change because of them. Without interference, record the general information of the planet, and then there will be backup troops coming to orbit to prepare for the future territory. But the bosses on both sides thought it was a threat of reconciliation, implying that they didn't reconcile and bombarded you. Even though the other party is an endless feud, the two representative bosses are still very friendly, shaking hands on the spot. With the detailed mediation of the alien civilization, the entire planet of King Planet, the 5 continents became 5 countries today, plus how many sea areas around the land, the area reached half of the total area of the planet, and the remaining half, the islands and deep oceans far away from the land, are the world of the Zombie Gate. Since then, a broader human race and royal family have been discovered in the universe. After 10 years of open and secret struggles, mankind has inherited the rise of a new generation of supernatural powers. The royal family has low intelligence and turned into slaves. The intelligence is superb to learn from humans to manage the country and ask for help. Alien civilization has even solved the problem of inability to reproduce. Although reproduction is still difficult, the royal family with a longevity advantage has finally become a race. After being happy, letting go of hatred with the new generation of humans, they all started to develop the Sea of Stars. Construction. Until now, more than 20 years later, order is finally civilized. It's too sci-fi. What about the law of the dark jungle? Why is there a good man? Langren spit out, and he turned over his memory. The body owner is an ordinary lower class. Father has no room for improvement because of his abilities. He became an ordinary construction worker. He died accidentally during construction again. His mother was too emotional with his father and soon followed him because of a heart disease. Go with. That was Langlan was 5 years old. After that, Langlan was adopted by an organization after living in the Starting Point orphanage for 7 years. Because in the orphanage at that time, those with strong ability or potential were adopted early, and this organization desperately needed fresh loyalty. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com was regarded as a freelance worker. Langlin lived in this organization for another 7 years. During the 7 years, he served tea and water to the little leaders for sanitation, and occasionally was forced to go to women's clothing and dance to earn tips because of his white and slender appearance. Langgren thought that his face was dark here, but fortunately no one looked at him, because Langlin had long hair covering half of his eyes and face, like a killer mat. No one liked him. It wasn't until a few months ago that he had a real mission, to approach Miss Lo and try to develop her. The clan can be regarded as the nobles of this era, and Luo Ziyu is a collateral eldest lady of this clan, and still has some status, which is neither very important nor useless. No one in the group has this kind of acting talent. The one who looks good and not amazing is Langlin. Although the ability is useless, there is no way. It is too short of people. So the task is assigned to Langlin, and there will be passing team members to see how the progress is. It didn't take long before the wind went smoothly. I knew that Langlin really liked the girl who was a little boyish. Langlin, who had never seen a black hand, wanted to refuse to do this task. He didn't want this little girl to wear shameful clothes like him. He couldn't bear to go dancing to show others. Is such an innocent and lovely child. Then he was slapped to the ground by the man in black, the team member who passed by recently, and died on the spot with his pierced chest. After, Langgren came. What kind of power can make Langlin have such a tragic second half of his life? Langgren stretched out his hand, and concentrated his mental energy hard. Condensation. Brush's shoddy knife appeared in Langgren's hand. Langgren was silent. Is this an ordinary knife? No, it even only has a rough embryo, without the blade and the handle add up to 15 centimeters, and now it takes only 9 seconds to manifest at a time, and the cooling time is also 9 seconds. In his memory, he has seen Langlin secretly sharpening the knife many times. He wanted to make this knife look more like a knife, but it was useless. The sharpening stone was worn through and it grew. The 2-second manifestation time shortens the cooling time by 1 second. This has been Langlin's hard work for more than 10 years, and now he is almost 20 years old. This is the age of manhood, and he can't even touch the threshold of true transcendence. It's not that there are supernatural powers, it is extraordinary, and now ordinary people are able to pick one out with supernatural powers. The only remaining humans without abilities are already old and trembling. This ability, is it really useless? Langgren turned his attention to the template in his mind, and kept thinking in his heart. At that time, he heard the communication of the man in black very clearly. If this person still has a character in his body, he disappeared into the world like this. The organization will definitely find something wrong. As long as he comes to investigate, he will not die. Exposure, then it is self-evident who the murderer is, and what is waiting for him is the organization's pursuit. Strange, how can I think about so many things now? It seems that my brain is much more flexible than before. Langgren looked at the personal template and couldn't help but understand that his value was one section higher than Jing and Qi. The here represents the spirit, which also covers the thinking aspect. Hey? How did these 2 experience points come? Not at first. 1 experience point will be generated after the experience value is stored up. Sure enough, the storage experience column has changed. Storage experience, 3/17, and there is 1 experience point, and there is an extra button behind it. Langgren's spirit was condensed on the button, and at this time he turned to the skill scroll, which also changed, especially in the blank space below, there was a strange name. Soul Knife, a small knife condensed with spirit and vitality. Although it looks old and crude, it has potential. I glanced over this point of skill. There are quite a lot of skills that can be upgraded, and a small piece of the skill tree is bright. Whirlwind step forward send eagle cut dual wheeled derivation chasing / lien zhan deng carp. Why do you still have a step forward? Lang Gren was puzzled. In the wolf, this skill is the wolf's own skill, and the original prosthetic derivative has become a dual-wielding derivative? At this time, a piece of remnant paper floated from the depths of the sea of consciousness, with text on it. The template will have a better understanding of the world and change some skills. The real reality is not a game, so you can comprehend it yourself. After Lang Gren finished reading, the remaining paper turned into nothingness and disappeared in the sea of consciousness. Lang Gren saw the phrase real reality is not a game. With current thinking, it is not difficult to understand the meaning of this sentence. I still need to learn more because the wolf in the game has been taught since he was a child, but Lang Gren has not. Dual-wielding derivation means that Lang Gren did not lose his left arm and replaced it with a prosthetic hand, so this wolf template changed it himself. Thinking of this, Lang Gren suddenly remembered that when the template was just loaded, there was a rule conflict in the skill template and he had to remake it. Real, not a game. This template is very detailed. Except for some fundamental changes, Lang Gren actually doesn't need to ask about the template at all. If he concentrates his mental energy on the scroll, there will be corresponding explanations. The number of rebirths is obtained by actively redeeming 10 skill points. Soul Knife, special ability, can spend skill points to increase strength. I have to say, perfect. With a big wave, Lang Gren chose acquisition flow, proficiency 10%. Learn the carp, proficiency 10%. Proficiency can increase the master's mastery of moves and improve the efficiency of the use of the spirit, energy, and spirit. Every 100% of the proficiency can reduce the energy consumption by 1%, and so on. Improved proficiency can be applied to any time and anywhere in reality. The method of improvement, practice training, actual combat. Has not been surprised by the unfamiliar changes. 2 sword skills appeared in his mind, read it at random. Lang Gren chose. Go to bed. He is too tired now. From being hit by a meteorite to killing people and destroying the corpse, groping for the function of the gold finger, he has matured to the pressure that he should not bear at this age. Slept in a dazed manner, there was a vibration from his wrist, and the sleepy Lang Gren patted the other hand on the watch, and the world was quiet again. The one who wiped? Those 3 went to dinner and didn't call me. There was a gurgling sound in my stomach. It was okay if I didn't wake up, and I was hungry when I woke up, which was very uncomfortable. Lang Gren opened his eyes, and what he saw was not the ceiling where he posted the poster of the beautiful anime girl. Lang Gren sat up suddenly, realizing that he had really crossed. Followed the memory to the bathroom like a walking dead, fiddled with his hair, looking at himself, who was still haggard even after a full sleep. But this hair looks really in the way. Turning around and picking up the scissors, it was a violent cut. The hair was broken in a mess. Lang Gren's hairstyle was as ugly as a dog chewing, because he couldn't cut his hair. He was originally looking at this strange face. It's just a suffocated vent. Because he has to accept this fact, this may also be one of the great strengths of the 21st century sand sculpture youth, and he is happy to accept it. Carefully cut himself a short, cooler hair again, and his white face was completely revealed. This is the future him, and he wants to remember this face. Langland lives in an apartment. The room is not big, the living room is the bedroom, with a toilet, no kitchen, but there is a refrigerator and microwave oven integrated kitchen machine. Opened the refrigerator, and when he was thirsty, he groaned and drank 2 bottles of goat's milk, and ate a few compressed rations. Langlin Mingming knows how to cook, but there are no leftovers or ingredients in the freezer. Lang Gren knows why, so he doesn't bother to take care of it, just have something to fill his stomach. After eating and drinking, I looked at my watch. This is the universal communication tool and entertainment tool at this stage. So many missed calls? I'll check the time a little later. It was 10:30 in the morning. I don't know how long I slept. Lang Gren decided to change his place of residence as soon as possible and changed his watch. Withdraw money, break your watch, find a river and lose it, go to Central Street and buy a new one. Casually pulled on a hooded dress, put on the hood and went out. The things on Zhongzhen Street are not cheap, and the amount of money on the internet is about 30% more expensive on Zhongzhen Street. Langlin originally didn't have a lot of deposits. If he was there, he would be reluctant to kill him. But Lang Gren didn't spend his own money, so he didn't feel distressed. Sorry, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com, I will take them all out. Lang Gren arrived at the counter and used the account password to redeem all Langlin's 31,200 yuan. He hurriedly found a horned place to smash the watch. Lang Gren, who felt uneasy, also used a different one. I knocked the watch out with a knife, scattered the parts into different trash cans, went to Zhongzhen Street, bought a middle-sized machine without paying the price, and the smiling boss couldn't talk from ear to ear. Just as Lang Gren was sitting on a public seat on the side of the street to register his new ID, he was surrounded by a group of people. Wow, the poor guy is willing to buy good things? But it's just a rubbish. Where have you been in the past 2 days? It's been hard for me to find you recently. Looked at the 4 different pairs of sneakers in front of him blankly, and the standing postures were also not recognized by the 6 relatives. As far as he knows, these 4 people are all from a bit of background at home, either clinging to witch clan or power. People like, logically speaking, even if they fight with dogs on the side of the road, they don't bother to bully Langlin. But that's right. The task Langlin received at the beginning was to approach Luo Ziyu and develop her into the task of organizing informants. Originally, Langlin had nowhere to start. Who knew that an unintentional act was bullied by a gang at the time? Luo Ziyu, who was passing by, helped, and then Luo Ziyu found out that this was her future classmate. The compassionate Miss Luo will help him from time to time in the days to come. For shabby meals, the Miss will occasionally reward him with a meat dish until the originally introverted Langlin dared to tell her first sentence. This is the reason why these 4 people bully Langlin. Another important point is that these 4 people will only bully Miss Luo when he is nearby. In fact, Miss Luo is very difficult. In the current clan, who is not a sharpied person. Even if this eldest lady doesn't have the skills at that age, but grew up in that environment, how can she not be touched? Ms. Luo has long seen that Langlin has a problem, but because Langlin's character is really cowardly and introverted, she can't pretend that she is timid, and she is afraid of giving him a kick and touching his ass. These are the reasons why Miss Luo was not so wary of him, and even occasionally helped him, because in the current environment, such people often have a past that they dare not remember. That's why Miss Luo moved her compassionate heart? In fact, it remains to be disputed. Lang Gren used a third-person perspective in the virtual system to see exactly that the eldest lady who was innocent on the surface with a hint of manliness was actually a shrewd and cold fox. It's just not as bad as a bad old man. That's the problem. In fact, there are so many missed calls before, and some of them are calls from this eldest lady. I checked the time at random. The earliest call was a call 2 days ago. This shows that Lang Gren has been asleep for 2 days. Lang Gren originally wanted to take this opportunity to stay away from the vixen. Lang Gren was just a person who had read Langlin's memories in the third person. He could only see the screen and hear the sound, and would not have Langlin's inferiority experience, so Lang Gren simply there is no such kind of inferiority and cowardice. Even if he wants to perform, he can't perform as an ordinary college student passing by. So as long as he meets each other, he will definitely fail. Thinking of this, Lang Gren immediately stood up and looked around. What made him feel relieved was that at least he couldn't see Luo Ziyu yet. Then you must hurry and leave. But these 4 people. Lang Gren looked at the 4 people who surrounded him, suddenly looked distressed and sighed. This makes the other 4 people weird. Why didn't this coward start begging them? What are you sighing, why don't you kneel for grandpa? Before he finished speaking, a white fist struck him directly on the bridge of his nose. The force of the fist was not small, and his tears and nosebleeds burst out all at once, clutching his nose and wailing. These 4 people are not ordinary people, and their abilities have their own characteristics, but they are strong and weak, and this leader is a person with relatively strong abilities. The other 3 people were stunned by the scene of the weak rabbit hitting the tiger, but the reaction was not slow, and they used the ability in an instant. It's a pity that Lang Gren is faster, and the short soul knife stabs the dantian of a person's abdomen quickly like a rush of water. I didn't care about this person being pierced with eyeballs protruding. Turning around the knife and slapped the blade, a carp smashed the small ice cone that flew to his chest, and put his foot on the other chest that was still rubbing the fireball. You still used the accumulating skills so close, you got the dog in class. Lang Gren cursed in disdain, and smashed this ice power to the ground with a palm of water and a knife. The flowing water knife method can be turbulent, sturdy, and powerful like a big river, or it can pass through the cracks of rocks like a stream to overcome the rigidity with softness. But the physical fitness requirements are strict. Lang Gren now understands how to exert strength, but he can't stand his weakness. The completion of these actions in a short time has already exhausted him. Jumped over the useless kid lying on the ground wailing and rolling, Lang Gren ran away before Luo Ziyu appeared. If you meet Miss Luo from a distance and run away, this is Schrodinger's journey. This time, if you play Langlin and be beaten by these 4, Luo Ziyu asks a few words at random, Lang Gren will definitely be the dead cat. Not long after Lang Gren ran out, a familiar and crisp voice came from behind him. Langlin. I remembered the crossroads I had just passed by, and sighed that it was not good. He was seen wearing a hood. Lang Gren did not respond, speeded up, turned a corner and disappeared into Luo Ziyu's sight. Are you wrong? Said one of Luo Ziyu's companions. Yes, every time Langlin sees you, it is the same as seeing a goddess, no matter what. Yes, no matter how anxious, Langlin would stop. Although he didn't dare to speak, he would listen to her carefully before leaving. It is not that she wants such an obedient person who treats her as a god, but she knows such Langlin. Maybe it's a mistake. Didn't Langlin's adoptive father say that he asked Langlin for leave for something at home? He should have gone to his hometown now. Luo Ziyu nodded, yes, I was wrong. However, after not taking a few steps, I saw 4 unfamiliar acquaintances lying on the ground. There were good-hearted people around who wanted to call an ambulance for them, but they were all rejected by the person holding their noses. Gaolin? You guys, what's wrong with this? Gaolin held his nose and opened his eyes to see a group of Ying Ying Yan Yan, but his eyes couldn't help but gathered on Luo Ziyu who didn't speak. He hurriedly got up, and kicked the 3 people on the ground, laughing. It's nothing, but... Miss Luo, I'm not talking too much, I don't know how to raise a dog, or don't raise it. Look, the 4 of us just cared about Langlin and asked him how things were going on at home. So, he beat me. He beat us all. Look at Guan Hongqing, his stomach is almost stabbed. If it weren't for the good relationship between him and Miss Luo, I would have beaten back, Miss Luo. You should have less contact with him. Thank you for the reminder, but you should go and see the injury first, it's all bloody. Hey, what's the matter? Although there are few abilities of healing power, but I still can't find one. Also, these 4 people are loitering all day long and making troubles. Whoever doesn't show off will be looked down upon. There is no healing person, so they dare to make such waves? Luo Ziyu nodded, and looked back, there was no familiar shadow peeking at the corner of the street. I thought that the poor man had changed a bit, but that was also a good thing for him. On the other side, following the Zhongligzun map, Lang Gren came to a timber shop. Fortunately, I didn't come. Although the girl didn't know how to fight, she was a real clever supernatural person. Nowadays, human beings are all counting on going to the stars. In recent years, starship-related technologies have been breached every year, and the learning and training of human abilities has long been integrated into human society. Just like reading and writing, it has been unlocked by viruses. Humans with genetic abilities can already improve their lives through this method. While improving their abilities, they also improve their physical fitness, and even their lifespan. Just like the S-level boss who experienced the end-time crisis of the year, everyone is still looking like when they were young. Can you practice this? So there are 6 levels on Ren Wang, but strictly speaking there are 7, starting from ordinary people harmless D grade C level class B grade A S level SS level. However, the official standard is for reference only, because there are also special abilities that are not restricted by level, and some abilities have a mutual restraint relationship, and cannot be divided by level, so level is more about the division of comprehensive vitality. The stronger the overall vitality, the stronger the abilities and the higher the physical fitness. Langlin has never seen Luo Ziyu's ability, only heard that she is a crank supernatural person, but that is also something that Lang Gren can't provoke. In case the other party is unhappy, and it is of clan background, he might one day, the world will evaporate again. Okay? Why use it again? As soon as he stepped into the timber shop, Lang Gren saw the wall in front of him, covered with wooden weapons. Because after having the ability, physical fitness, martial arts training is indispensable, but the government strictly controls the weapons and props, so more use wooden weapons. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com must have iron weapons, but they are normal. The channels are inaccessible, and you need to apply for review and reassessment before you can get the permission to hold metal weapons. What kind of wooden knife does the young man want? Seeing the customer looking at the wooden knife products, the boss wearing glasses smiled and asked, because the wood is good or bad, it is compatible with abilities, and some are not. This is the characteristic of wood now. Be hard. Nothing? Just hard? What about the ability affinity? Some wood can increase toughness with abilities, and some. No, it just needs to be hard enough. It must be hard enough. Lang Gren emphasized repeatedly. Then I will show you some. The boss turned around and entered the processing room, and came out with 4 or 5 wooden knives of different colors. Come on, you try. After a while, Lang Gren took the wooden knife and walked out of the timber shop. Because of the ostentatiousness of not bargaining, the boss also gave a scabbard and a knife belt. In fact, Lang Gren left the tufut knife that killed him at home, but he can't use that one in daily practice. It's just in case. If you practice daily, you need a patience. Stay abraded and beaten knives. It took more than 8,000 yuan for Langlin. As for whether the wood in the owner's shop has the best hardness and toughness, Lang Gren doesn't know. If it breaks, go find him again. Went back to the apartment, found the person in charge of the apartment building from Langlin's memory, and agreed that he would move out at night. The person in charge who pursues efficiency is not too much. According to the contract, the refund should be refunded. As long as Lang Gren's room is intact and empty when checked tomorrow, the deposit will also be refunded to his new account. It's just that everything about Lang Gren didn't go as smoothly as he expected. After eating fast food as dinner, thinking about how much of the things to be removed can be thrown away, stepped onto the corridor on the 4th floor. The deepest room in the corridor was his Langlin's apartment, but in front of his apartment that will soon not belong to him, there is a young girl with long hair and waist. Standing beside him is an old man in ancient clothes. Is Luo Ziyu? Did she come to him in person? In other words, just a reaction without looking back made him suspect? Lang Gren certainly could not have imagined that the 4 Taihanin would really lie on the ground for so long, because he still underestimated their shamelessness. At this moment, Lang Gren turned his head and ran. Always old, keep him. Yes. The voice hadn't fallen yet, Chong Lao had already lost a trace. Within 1 second, the toes crossed a distance of 20 meters 3 times, and he rushed directly behind Lang Gren. Lang Gren was panicking a group now, not sure if the other party would directly beat him to death and then take him back for questioning. He could only turn around and draw a knife between gritted teeth. Climb the carp. The wooden sword blade touched the tiger claws that appeared in front of the old man's palm, held back the sharp pain of the wrist and retracted it with clever force, and immediately after receiving the impact, it bounced the tiger palm on the left with a bang. But I can't stop, there is a right side. The left palm pressed the painful right wrist and barely met the tiger's palm, but the pain of the right wrist reached the apex in an instant when the collision occurred, and the wooden knife was directly shot out by a palm, and everyone was knocked out by a huge force and hit the stairs. There was a dull crash on the wall that turned around, and Julie almost made Lang Gren spit out dinner. Okay. There is a play. Lang Gren retracted his right wrist on his chest to avoid another injury when he fell on the ground, and immediately climbed downstairs after he fell to the ground. As long as he was able to stand up on the hallway downstairs with the help of the potential energy of rolling down. But Chong Lao was faster. After Lang Gren fell to the ground, he already grabbed his back collar with one hand, just like leading a milk dog, and also picked up his wooden knife. Please go in and sit down. Luo Ziyu put his arms around his chest, looking at Lang Gren who was thrown on the ground like a dead dog. Is there any other choice? Lang Gren clutched his wrists and sat on the ground looking up at her. Your teacher taught you to use questions to answer questions. You too. Lang Gren got up, awkwardly took out the key in the pocket with his left hand, and opened the door. Please. Please come in. The living room is the bedroom. There are 3 people in the small apartment, which is still a bit crowded. After Lang Gren woke up, the packaging bag after drinking and eating was thrown on the ground, and the quilt was messy. Sorry, it's a little messy, just sit down. Lang Gren hurriedly dragged the chair over and sat for this cold clan eldest lady. Are you not Langlin? What about Langlin? Was transferred by your organization. Luo Ziyu looked at the boy, exactly the same as the cowardly face, except that the hairstyle was different, and there was no instinctive fear in his eyes. Another person, really? I hope that the eldest lady will tell me why you care about him, you know his purpose. Lang Gren lowered his head and looked at the floor, wondering how to get through. I seldom feel sorry for a person. Poor people must be hateful. This is cause and effect, but his cowardice is pure fear. I just want him to feel the kindness of the world. Just because of this. I need to lie to you. Lang Gren looked at the quiet old man, and laughed at himself, yes. It's a pity, he died. Lang Gren finished speaking these 3 words, the room temperature suddenly dropped, not because of psychological pressure. Is real physical cooling. You did it. To replace him. Stop, stop, it's not me, I can't replace him, I avenge him. It's not a lie. Luo Ziyu's raised right hand stopped. Langlin, as you said, the 5-year-old parents passed away with autism, and they were also alone in the orphanage. They were always bullied and had no friends. After 7 years in the organization, they would beat, scold, and bully every day. Lang Gren said slowly, and suddenly his tone became tough. It was you. After he left that hell, you made him feel warm. Whether it was a piece of meat, in a word, he actually felt your care, so he liked you, so he told his superiors that he would not do it. So he slapped him and was nailed to the ground with a sword piercing his heart. He was unwilling to hold the blade before he died. How do you know? I is his separated twin brother. He was transferred here a few days after meeting in the organization. When he died, I watched him personally. Then how did you avenge him? You betrayed your organization. Yes, he is also my last relative. He lives more painful than me, so I wanted to live a good life with him, but I didn't expect all this to come too soon, so I concealed my breath from behind the murderer, kill him. Where is the corpse? corroded into bone charcoal. Luo Ziyu lowered his head, not knowing what he was thinking, and was silent. The old man kept his eyes closed and did not speak, as if everything had nothing to do with him except for another order. Lang Gren didn't dare to continue speaking, because now life and death are just at this moment. Yes, Lang Gren is taking advantage of the other party's guilt. When the other party hears the reason for Langlan's death, he will definitely feel guilty. But he avenged him, indicating that he is not bad to this poor man, and he may not be a good person, but did not trample on the other side's mercy for charity. After only 10 seconds, the clan eldest lady calmed down. Evidence, let me believe you. Lang Gren pretended to be stunned. What? No evidence? Luo Ziyu's calm eyes narrowed, overflowing with murderous intent. Yes, I wanted to keep it for myself. Lang Gren secretly rejoiced that he had not had time to throw away the pierced white shirt. Look at it. The blood on the white shirt has dried and changed color, but the smell of blood is still strong. Luo Ziyu stood up, took it with both hands, and slowly spread it out. This is a shirt she took off during a certain shopping trip. She gave it to Langlan regardless of its suitability. She only remembered that there was a blooming flower in the heart of this dress. The blood stains soaked the entire back of the shirt. There was a cut hole in the back of the shirt. The blooming flower on the left half of the front was also divided, corresponding to a breach, which proved the disappearance of a life and her compassion. Lang Gren looked at her, thinking about adding a little more weight. Yu reading www.yuyukanshu.com and this. Lang Gren took out the tufut knife again. There is no scabbard, and the blood on it is also dry. When she saw that the blade could pass through these two holes, she finally sighed. Looking at Lang Gren, that face reminded her of the poor bug who always frowned but smiled to show her friendliness. You, an ordinary person who killed his boss, he would be chased until the day he died, right? Regret? No regrets. I respect my inner guidance. When my brother died, I was angry and avenged him. This is my inner guidance. Death is just to see him again. But I can't die yet. Lang Gren looked directly into Luo Ziyu's eyes. I have to live with his will. This also explained why he had to run when he saw Luo Ziyu. What is your name? Lang Gren. Okay, always old. Yes. Chong Lao bowed his head slightly. Lang Ren just took your attack with a knife. Chong Lao recognized that he knew what the eldest lady meant, not to mention that Lang Gren used his own strength to resist his one-stroke tiger downhill pose. Even if he only had a 3-point force in this move, it was also remarkable. There is a lot of potential, the old man guesses in vain, practice more, Alavel hopeful. Luo Ziyu looked at the poor man's twin brother in surprise. Okay, compile it. Luo Ziyu turned and walked to the door, and stopped suddenly. From now on, improve yourself and avenge your brother. Your hatred will not end until you destroy your organization. Don't let anyone trample on my will. This is your future task. Luo Ziyu left here with the old man who nodded in apology. Lang Gren watched them leave in the corridor, began to clean up the room, throwing everything into the trash can downstairs, and then lay back on the bed. What he said just now is indeed full of loopholes, and many of its authenticity are questionable. But this exactly the same face makes these lies true, plus the clothes, it proves that Langlan will die. And Lang Gren looks so consistent, except for the twin brothers, there is no other explanation. Coupled with the fluctuation of the other party's mentality, it was so thrilling and safe. Lang Gren thought over and over again, wondering if there was a better corresponding plan at the time, and fell into a deep sleep without knowing it. Luo Ziyu got in the private car here, sitting in the back seat, looking out the window slightly sadly, and glanced at the blood suit and iron knife on the other side. Inexplicably upset, I haven't seen you for 2 days, and the poor bug just died. Miss, just an orphan, don't worry about it. Just say something. Yes, the old man thinks that Lang Gren's words are not all true. Chong Lao sat in the co-pilot and spoke slowly. It's okay, this is enough. If he has other actions in the future, it won't be too late to kill. Early the next morning, Lang Gren left the apartment building and found that a special car had come downstairs to pick him up. Boy, is it okay to rest at night? Let's get in the car first. The car window was pulled down. It turned out to be the old man who beat him yesterday. It's okay, but your wrist hurts because you keep hitting. Lang Gren smiled, opened the car door and sat in. I'm the steward next to the lady, you can call me old. Hey, I am old, and I can't hold it hard, don't be surprised, come on, this sticker will be better on your wrist. Well, I will be under Missy in the future. If you do something wrong in the future, you should always be punished or punished. Lang Gren said humbly, took a piece of ointment and put it on his wrist. The two of them talked like elders and younger generations along the way. Lang Gren also had to answer questions, anyway, his personal settings were also orphans, so he just picked them out from Langlin's memory. Until the car stopped at the back door of Luo's house, Chong Lao didn't talk about business. Remember what Miss yesterday said? Remember. Very well, come with me to see the lady. Lang Gren nodded, and followed Chong Lao silently. Sometimes servants dressed in maid dresses passed by, causing Lang Gren to look at them with curious eyes. Miss, I have brought you here. Kigwai Bagwai Chong Lao finally brought Lang Gren to a room. Okay, let him in, get rid of the old man, go get something. Lang Gren's familiar, cold voice came from inside, and Chong Lao opened the door for Lang Gren to sign in. Thank you. Lang Gren went in and looked at the books neatly arranged on the shelves, thinking that this one was Luo Ziyu's study, and she didn't know how many books she had read. I heard that the study rooms of the rich are actually just for viewing. I thought about it last night. You and your brother are almost the same in appearance and body shape. It's better to let you play the role of Langlin next, so I have prepared a new identity certificate for you. From today, I will use your brother's identity again. Back to college. Luo Ziyu did not look at Lang Gren, but kept staring at the pamphlet in his hand. Lang Gren didn't know what she was looking at. Miss, you know, I am not Langlin after all. I just look alike but have a dissimilar personality. It is easy to be seen. This is the first problem for you to solve. Either let others adapt to the new Langlin, or try to pretend to be Langlin and do whatever you want. The other is that when there is a summons in the future, you will be on call. Don't run away like you saw me yesterday. That was an escape yesterday, I promise to be there on call in the future. Okay, in the future, you and I are classmates. Pay attention to yourself when you are outside. I allow you to call my name. Okay, Chong Lao should be waiting for you outside. Take your things to prepare. 7:40. Don't let me wait at the door. After Lang Gren walked out of the study, he found that Chong Lao was really waiting at the door, holding a small box in his hand. Lang boy, these are your personal belongings in the future. Remember to bring your ID card with you. Let's go, and take you to get to know your room. They are all ready. Hearing this, Lang Gren couldn't help sighing inwardly, rich is a real cow. Putting on the college uniform, Lang Gren thought for a moment or chose not to put the wooden knife on his waist. After realizing that the time was running out, he hurriedly picked up the preparation on the table and ran out early. It's really a big head. I was smashed in school and forced to go to school in another world. Is it so difficult for me? Lang Gren gnawed on the sandwich in his hand and found that it was quite appetizing. After a sip of milk, he felt more comfortable in his stomach, and made the originally depressed mood better. How long have you been separated from your brother? Ms. Luo, who was walking beside Lang Gren, asked curiosity. Originally, Lang Gren wanted to follow her alone, reading www.yuyuganshu.com, but the eldest lady emphasized that she was a classmate outside, and let Lang Gren bitterly stood beside her and walked side by side, which looked more like a bit. 14 years, after our parents passed away, he and I were adopted by the orphanage. I was adopted soon afterwards. It was just not lucky. Although the adoptive parents were rich, they also had a princess-tempered daughter. I stayed. After 3 years, I couldn't stand it anymore. I sneaked out, and I just outside. Lang Gren seemed to realize something too, and could not help but whispered a little lonely, but even if he is a stray, he is far more fortunate than my brother. Well, come here, you are Langlin now. Yes. So there was a weird silence along the way. Lang Gren was really afraid of telling too many lies, and he didn't know where there were loopholes by the time. Luo Ziyu didn't take the initiative to speak. Lang Gren also decided to kill him. However, Luo Ziyu stopped asking more questions. Lang Gren had a very uncomfortable day. When he arrived at the college, each of his classmates thought that something happened to him that caused a big change in his personality. Some told him that he was sorrowful, and some told him that everything would pass. Lang Gren was at a loss when he heard it. What is this all about? After finally dismissing the classmates, and the teacher still has to deal with, Lang Gren flipped through the memories of Langlin while laying out a lot of lies, until he himself almost couldn't tell who he was. At noon, I want to hide and have a meal by myself, and there are people who gather around to have a relationship. This inexplicable interpersonal relationship caused Lang Gren to explode. He regrets his intestines now. He shouldn't buy this broken watch. So you want to go out and live alone? The chopsticks in Luo Ziyu's hand stopped, and then a piece of ribs was placed in the bowl of his sister beside him. The little girl did not say a word, eating the ribs obediently, glancing at Lang Gren from time to time. There are only 2 of them at the dinner table and 3 of them in the room. Is there any reason? Let's talk about it. Luo Ziyu put down his chopsticks and asked casually. But Lang Gren suddenly felt shady behind him. Yes, I just think that Langlin was already dead, but if the person who killed Langlin didn't go back and complete his mission, then my side will definitely be exposed. There are many assassins in the group. I living in Luozai, if it interrupts your rest one night, it won't be great. Oh? You really think so? I don't actually care about being disturbed at night, because I am often disturbed, and wake up in deep sleep. I am used to it. Luo Ziyu said nonchalantly, seemingly ready to dismiss his thoughts in words. Lang Gren suddenly felt bitter, and he caught a glimpse of Luo Ziyu's distant relative and sister looking at him, and his small eyes were filled with big doubts. But... Okay, stop but, let's talk about it then. Luo Ziyu waved his hand to tell Lang Gren to stop talking, and Lang Gren had to say goodbye. After Lang Gren left, Luo Ziyu looked at the little girl beside him. Fenglin, tell my sister, what is he thinking? Sister, let him go out otherwise, don't live in our house. Luo Fenglin pouted her mouth, her small brows wrinkled together like an adult, and her face was full of worry. Why? Tell my sister. Luo Fenglin thought for a long time. Luo Ziyu was not in a hurry, after all, she was still young, and wanted to express that feeling, and she had to find a vocabulary that fits that feeling. Oh, it's this, sister, he always wanted to kill. Hey? Is he trying to kill anyone? No, just pure thinking, no accurate person. This is Luo Ziyu's turn to think. From the root cause, the other party lied to himself, and he blocked his retreat again and again. If there are any dangerous thoughts, it is not surprising. After all, a person who has been trained by a third-rate organization. But the other party has the idea of killing, but not her, which is very strange. And he has some ideas, I can't hear them at all, I don't know why. Okay, don't think about it, let's eat first, there is still homework to do in the evening. Luo Ziyu touched the head of his beloved sister, and decided in his heart. If he wants to kill, just give him some, it's up to him whether he can kill. As for Lang Gren, Can you not think about it? In which novel is not the protagonist's domineering sideshow, Miss Kyunjin all posts upside down, long Aotians don't want it, why is he just a wolf with the seventh eye, or the one that strikes a bell? He is eager to learn experience. But now it is an orderly civilization, at least on the face of it, everyone lives and works in peace and contentment. To gain experience, Lang Gren has to find chaotic places and illegal places. So Lang Gren's original idea was to kill the organization that didn't even let the low-level members know its name, and slaughter all those who had bullied Langlan in it. But Langlan was sent to this city by a special plane. I don't seem to know where the base camp is. Ah, what am I going to do? Lang Gren was tumbling on his bed with his head in his arms. Normally, passing by the college students, he had no idea at all. Old thief! How do you want to collect experience? There was a sudden drumbeat in the sea of consciousness, and behind the personal template in my mind, a piece of yellowed paper floated out with black writing on it. Killing lives to gain experience points, leapfrogging to kill gains a lot of experience points, and if someone dies within 10 meters around you, you get half of the experience points. Lang Gren looked at the piece of paper for a moment, why didn't he kill it himself, and he could also learn from the experience. Recalling some of the pictures in the game, remember that when Guying Zhong and Ashina were in conflict, it seemed that the wolves who passed by would also gain experience points? So even this mechanism is retained? But the problem is that I am not asking about the method of experience, but how to have experience. Is it possible to go to the hospital and wait for someone to die every day? That's not the answer. Then go to a place outside the law? The place outside the law is far away from order and civilization. Although Lang Gren liked the place in Langlan's memory, he had no capital to mix there. Langlan is just a weak person who can't be touched by a glass. It took 7 years to sharpen the knife through a whetstone MT. It only increased the duration a little bit and increased the value by 5 points. Wait, raise the upper limit of God's value by a full 5 points? Lang Gren suddenly reacted, why he is prone to thinking wildly, because his mental thinking is 1.5 times that of ordinary people. It's just that Langlan's psychological problems since he was a child, this 1.5 times has actually harmed him, and his active thinking aggravated his suspicion. But these are not the issues he has to consider. People die like a lamp, and now I only need to consider how I can control my freedom. I can't control my own feelings, I'm too frustrated. Lang Gren, who made up his mind to buy a whetstone tomorrow, finally relieved. Although reading www.yuyugonshu.com seems to be slower, but Lang Gren can spend more time than Langlan, so this is a way to become stronger. Since the value can be increased by grinding, thereby increasing the duration and cooling time, how can the essence and energy be improved? Lang Gren fell asleep while thinking, not knowing that a certain fox bought him. What? That traitor Langlan is not dead. In a remote rental room, a man with a bald face covered with tattoos held the scroll in his hand, and you were teasing me with his face full. Yes, the monitoring of the investigation has also proved that he is indeed not dead, and he is still very close to the original target. The relationship between the two is completely different from before. What about Zami? Zami kept telling me that he killed the 25th boy with one sword. Also checked, Zami, it's gone. The scroll instantly collapsed and turned into confetti. Okay. Not only did he raise a witty wolf in 7 years, he was also a wolf with such a deep scheming, but his ability test was a waste. It must be the hands and feet made by the Luo family. He must have fascinated the Luo Ziyu very early. As for why Zami said that Langlan was killed by him, it must be the Luo family's illusion ability. The Luo family's spiritual ability has always been famous for its unpredictability. There must be people with illusions. The more my bald head reasoned, the more I felt that my reasoning was correct. Everything was logical. Otherwise, only Langlan's body and ability can't touch the corner of glass Zami. I can't let the above know about this. Go, let all the people in that area who have the ability to assassinate, without a face-to-face conflict with the Luo family, go and kill this witty wolf for me, and meet him. Yes. So Lang Gren started his daily routine of sharpening his sword all day long. Following Luo Ziyu, hu when get out of class is over, ho the sound of sharpening the knife was endless, and occasionally he would lift a rock and smash it when he got interested. If there is no class any afternoon, Lang Gren will sit in a corner on the roof of the teaching building and sharpen his knife. But it is not that Lang Gren can continue immediately after cooling down. Every time Lang Gren grinds for about 20 times, his value will drop to about 3 or 4 points. At this time, Lang Gren will feel dizzy. Need to rest for nearly an hour to return to normal around 12 o'clock, Lang Gren can continue to sharpen the knife. As the old saying goes, sharpening a knife does not kill people by mistake. Buzzing just as Lang Gren was grinding on the rooftop that day, the watch in his left hand vibrated. Only Luo Ziyu knew his number. Langlin, I remember you wanted to practice a knife? We are going to Zhongzhen Street, and we want to buy you one by the way, so let's join us. It is good. Luo Ziyu sounded like a negotiating tone, which proves that there are people around her and she needs to know the scene. Responded in a low voice, put the sharpening stone into the inner pocket of the uniform, and hurried down the teaching building. On a certain building in the distance, a star of reflection shines. Ziyu, let's go shopping for clothes, why bring a stinky man? A girl with short white hair holding Luo Ziyu's arm muttered dissatisfiedly. She finally told her family that she was going to play with her dear best friend today. Who knew that the other party actually called a stinky man in front of her? Is still a coward, not even a man. Rumen, he won't be with us, just leave him in the knife shop at that time, let's go play ours. Luo Ziyu said with a helpless smile, then turned to look at the quiet girl next to him, who was using the watch to send a message to whom? Lin Ziyang, do you have an appointment? Lin Ziyang nodded. The lady boss said that she asked someone to make a few dresses last time, but she can give us a try again. I think if it's good, I can use it next time I go to Key House. Are you not in a hurry? Once every 3 months, the last time I was at your house in Rumen, there is still half a month left. Let's take a look first anyway, if it's really good looking, it's not impossible to buy a dress. Watched them talk without any fluctuations in their hearts, and caught a glimpse of Lang Gren who was 10 meters away from the corner of his eyes. Lang Gren applied for this. If Luo Ziyu has a friend by his side, let him be at least 10 meters away. He said he was afraid of women. Whatever it is, Chong Lao said that many people with dark identities have entered the city, and it is good for Lang Gren to stay away from him. Let's go, let him follow. Luo Ziyu, who was about to speak, was preempted by Rumen. It turned out that Rumen had also seen Lang Gren. Yes, neither side is willing to contact, Luo Ziyu is too lazy to say. So the meaning of my following is to let you brush your lady's face. Looking at Luo Ziyu, who was walking away, and Rui Meng who turned his head and stared at him, Lang Gren held his forehead to the waiter who opened the door for him. Excuse me. The waiter looks like a somewhat old man, with bronze skin, wrinkles on his face, wearing navy blue overalls, and a very kind smile on his face. After all, the visitors are all customers, and the service industry wants to greet them with a smile. He is probably the most standard profession in the industry. You're welcome, please. Lang Gren stepped into a shop selling iron knives for the first time, and the many shining utensils on the wall suddenly became a bit blinding. Hello, do you have any requirements for the knife? Can you try them all? I don't have any requirements for appearance, I just want to take advantage of it, or two. Anyway, the clan rich woman is not bad for money, isn't it? Besides, Luo Fu also said just now, he chooses whatever he likes. And there was some unexplained taste in his eyes, which puzzled Lang Gren who was standing at the door for a while. Okay, I will bring all kinds of samples for you to try. After a while, the opponent brought a large stack of sheath knives of various shapes to give Lang Gren a try. Because in this industry, there are also harsh conditions for the feeling of drawing a knife. The different sheaths of the knife will affect the feel of drawing the knife. Therefore, some customers will choose the feeling that feels very close to their comfort, but it is always a little bit close. At this time, professionals will be asked to take a test, and then decided to add some changes on the basis of this approach to achieve the most comfortable level of the customer's knife. Try it slowly, I'll clean the counter. Okay. Watching the middle-aged man walk to the other side and carefully began to wipe the glass cabinet, Lang Gren picked up a wide blade knife at will. The sound of metal rubbing feels a little deliberate, which seems to be for those who like to act like force. Carefully measure the feel, it seems that it is too heavy. The wide blade knife was put into its sheath, and it made another sound, which made Lang Gren's scalp numb. Is too embarrassing, it seems that besides the initial feel, he has to pick one out of the sheath and silently. After trying 3 of them, Lang Gren shook his head. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. In fact, in this stack, there is indeed a slender knife in the shape of the stack, but the length and width of the knife are slender, but the blade is not curved. From the scabbard, it is straight until the tip of the knife. The arc of the upward pick. So he wanted to keep it and see if there are other ones that surprise him a little, which can be used as left-hand weapons. Hey! Short sword. Lang Gren saw a pile of 3-foot-long knives. There was a short knife that seemed to be only 2 feet long, which seemed a bit familiar. So he put away the small long knife that was too slender in his hand, took it in his right hand, and took the shameless short knife in his left hand. Indeed, Lang Gren is born with a flexible right wrist, so his left hand is equipped with a short and thick short knife, which is good as an axe. Just picked up the short knife, a huge drum echoed in his mind. A huge blood-red danger word filled his mind and really restrained him. Hurriedly turned around, Lang Gren thought that someone behind him was going to attack. But behind him was empty, only the waiter over there was still wiping the showcase that seemed to be unclean. If you perceive danger instinctively, it may be an illusion, but the wording of this big danger in my mind is the same as on the previous screen. But now he has neither encountered a stab nor swept from the bottom. Where does the unstoppable danger come from? Looked up and down the knife shop, the display is very neat. Is there a dark crossbow facing him? Lang Gren became suspicious, holding the unsheathed knife in both hands, slowly measuring his steps and walking around, pretending that he was suddenly interested, and visited the showcase that had been around for a week. Until Lang Gren walked to the edge of the counter closest to the entrance of the store, the door was within reach, and the word danger did not disappear. Is more full-bodied.